Hey, welcome back to Waz's Workshop. This is going to be video number 2. This is going to be the second project. Today we're looking at this Bosch router that I picked up off Facebook Marketplace. Bought it at the same time as I got my chop saw. I just kind of threw it in. I've been using it a bit by hand and it's really nice. I'm very happy with it. Got it for 60 bucks, which they're retailing for almost 200, so that was a great deal. But there are a few projects where I'm working on where I would like a solid base, so a table for this router. But I'm not going to buy a separate router for that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this plate, reverse engineer it, and then make it into a base that's going to screw onto my surface here. So I'll 3D print basically a table that's the same size as my build plate on the printer, and then it has an identical plate here, so these screws will just screw to the router, and then I'll have basically a router table when I want it, or a palm router when I want that. So I've already pulled my dimensions. Now I'm just going to go get that modeled up and then print off the tester and see how it goes from there. I'm going to have to invent something for the fence system, because I'm definitely going to want a fence for the router bits that don't have a bearing to control the depth of the cut, basically. So we'll see what I come up with for that, and I will see you on the computer. Okay, so we're over in Fusion 360 now, where I'm starting to work on the design. I'm basing the main dimensional constraints on the build plate of my P1S. So I think the advertised build volume for one of those is 256 by 256 by 256. So as you would have seen me dimensioning just a second ago, I think I had it at 245 by 245. I think at the end that ended up being a little bit too big, so a little bit later I'll go back and tweak it a little bit. But basically my idea with this design was to have it in pieces, so I could, one, print it easier without having to do a bunch of support structure and other things, and two, kind of take it apart and stow it for when I don't want to be using it. So the first piece you saw me make was sort of the, I guess, the frame, you might call it. So there's the main body, where then the secondary plate that the router mounts to, that you see me messing with right here, will actually drop into the framework of the table mount. So now I'm working on a dovetail, because my idea, I've seen one of these router tables made by people online out of wood, and I'm pretty much mirroring the same concept just with 3D printer. So the idea will be to have a backing kind of mounting plate that secures to my wooden workbench that you see at the beginning of the video, right on the edge of the 2x4 with a plywood on top of it. So right there I was dimensioning the 2x4 and then the plywood on top of it to kind of get my working space. And then you see me working more on the dovetail. That's, again, there's a lot of back and forth on this, because one, I think I drew it backwards initially. I was going to have it reversed, if that makes sense, but then I figured, I guess the male end of the dovetail I originally had sticking off of the mounting plate, which would be left secured to the wood workbench, which I didn't want, because then I'm going to run into it and probably break it or cut myself on it or do something, because I'm not paying attention or moving too fast. So you see me here reversing the dovetail so that the male end is actually on the frame part that's going to come off, and then there's me making the female end on the mounting plate, I think I call there the mount bracket. So you see me lining up the mates just to make sure everything fits. I'm not a big fan of the mating system in Fusion 360. I'm much more akin to the SolidWorks mates, but it's probably just because I haven't done a lot of assembly modeling in Fusion 360. It's generally just kind of one-off part designs. But as I'm making more and more complex things, I start to use assemblies a bit more, just so I can make sure everything is coming together right. So here I'm starting to work on the foundation for my support ribs, So I'm adding a couple more dovetails so these can pop in and pop out at, I guess, my leisure when I need them. I don't want this to be a permanent installation, and also the more kind of pieces that it can come apart into, then the easier it will be stored. So here's me massively overcomplicating this dovetail joint because I don't know if I'm remembering wrong, but I swear in SolidWorks you could do a cut like this from a midplane, offset in either direction, and then extrude from your offset from your midplane, if that makes sense. But it looked like in Fusion here that you could only offset and then go two directions from that singular offset. So you'll see me making it complicated. And then when I go back and have to edit a few things, it just makes it more and more of a pain to try to correct. But this is why we do things, you know, you learn as you go. I'm very much bullheaded when it comes to doing things. If I have a way of making it work in my head, then you'll be damned to get me to not do it my way first. I have to fail. That's how you learn. But here's me creating the rib geometry. I decided to make it in place in the model, which I don't generally do because all the references and relationships can get really out of hand really quickly. But in this instant, it's not like this is something I'm going to be changing that much, I think. You know, cross my fingers now. Who knows? Maybe I'll make 20 iterations of this in the future. But here I'm just going back and making everything a little bit smaller because I had it a bit beefy to begin with. So I made everything a bit skinnier and shrunk the dovetails down a bit. I'm just going back through and adding the finishing touches on the geometry and adding the chamfers and radiuses and things to make it just look a little bit nicer and come together a little better. Here I'm chamfering the female intros to the dovetails so it slides in a little bit easier because these are pretty tight clearances I'm putting on these dovetails. Thankfully it worked out in the end, but with borderline interference fits like this with 3D printing, you never really know, especially when you're just making up the joint on the fly, which is what I was doing. But you can see this coming to bite me in the butt with my projected geometries and things in the part design. It kind of all fell apart here, and I had to just kind of erase it all and start from scratch. And you see me fighting with projected lines and constraints. When you click the horizontal/vertical constraint and you want it to go vertical, but then it goes horizontal. It's classic with that. So here's me having to go back and recreate all of the features here because they just kind of all fell apart once everything was adjusted. So we're redoing that, redoing all the radiuses and fixing all the errors. Step by step, you can see me on the design or the timeline, I guess, below, stepping through each feature to see where my issues are, and then here, and then it blows up again, and then like what happened there. So I just deleted the part and re-added it, and that seemed to fix it. So now I have everything into Bamboo Studio, mirrored the parts there, and then you see me running into issues here, trying to nest it on the bed, and what I learned here is that little white corner in the edge of the build plate is reserved for the tool head. So it's about 6 squares, and you can't have anything in there or it will cause everything to fail. So you see me here, I just trimmed everything down by I think 10 millimeters. I think I dropped it to 235, so made it a little bit smaller. And then I'm adjusting the mounting plate to match, making sure everything fits as it should. And then I'm still running into that error. So you'll see right here, I have it on the screen with a circle. That little white square is where the problem was. But I got that fixed. And here's the time lapses of everything printing. And then I will jump back to the shop and show you guys how it came together. Okay, welcome back. The parts have just been pulled off the printer. I've got everything assembled and mounted up. And I gotta say I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out. So I'm just gonna flip it around and show you guys what we got going on here. So this is what it looks like. It's reasonably rigid. The dovetails, for total random guessing, turned out pretty well. This corner is a bit flimsy, but I don't need it to have any lateral constraint, so the dovetails are fine there. It does sit a little proud of the surface, but that could probably be addressed with just a little bit of touch-up. But for what I want it to do, it's working pretty good. So fire it up, spins good. I did want to make this piece out of transparent PLA. I had a roll that was probably 6 years old and it just crumbled to pieces because apparently transparent PLA does that. So we used blue instead. I kind of went with blue and red to match the theme of the Bosch colors. I know they're a little bit different, but turned out pretty nice. There's the screw connections there, if I can get it to focus. There you go. So I'm excited to give it a try, and I will add a video of me using it so you guys can see if it's steady enough. I do want to figure out a fence system. I don't know if that will be something I need to completely revise. I might be able to use a long enough board that clamps to my work surface here. But for now, we're going to start with this because it's going to do what I need it to do. But in the future, I could see this becoming modular and extending either direction, and then having some sort of, system here where I could inlay a track for a fence. But we will cross that bridge as it's needed. Well, there you guys have it. Just showed you the test video of the first cut with the new router table. I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out and the way it works for being first iteration design on all these parts, and everything actually coming together as I thought it up is a big win because it doesn't always come together, especially things like the dovetails. I very rarely get those right on the first try. So I'm happy with that result. I'm going to be posting all the files to Maker World on Bamboo Studio for anyone who might want to download this for themselves if they have the same router, or if the mount, the bolt circle for the mount on the faceplate of the router is the same for anybody else, then anyone else could use this for themselves, or we could post new mount plates for different hole patterns. If someone has a different one that they can measure up and send, then we can make the adjustments. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed watching. I'm sure I will have ideas on how to make this better and how to change things in the future, but keep an eye out for those videos as they come, and I will see you guys next time.